Hello! Welcome to Bad at Board Games.
Well, I guess I'm bad at board games because I haven't played a lot lately, and I lost this one.
And so did I.
Yeah.
I'm Brad Lake.
I'm Toph Ferguson.
We're bad at board games, so you don't have to be.
Like Brad.
Like me. Bad at everything.
We've been talking about that all day. Brad's bad at board games.
Anyway, what are we talking about today, Toph?
Today we were talking about Terminus.
Hidden gem or what? Broken toy that you want to just throw in the dumpster?
Is that what you did as a child?
No, I was pretty good with my toys.
Oh, good.
So, is this something that you want?
Good.
There's not. This is definitely under the radar. I did not get this as a Kickstarter, but I did review it as a Kickstarter because I thought it was cool then. And let's see if it lives up to the hype now that I bought it at Gencon, played it, and gotta go from there.
Yeah. I was excited when he sent me the text saying, "Hey, I'm at Gencon. Look what I picked up." And it was this game.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing much about it until then. And so...
Route building.
Yeah. Looks cool. Looks really cool. Mm-hmm. So the game itself is designed by Earl Asperus and Tom Valpe.
I met one of you at Gen Con. You were selling me the game.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Sure one of them. I think so. I could be lying. If it was the designer, I should have had them sign it. Probably wasn't the designer then.
I don't know. It could have been publisher too.
Yeah.
But Inside Up Games is the publisher, by the way.
Yep.
Brad met somebody or a volunteer that was selling him the game
yes.
that Brad confused for the designer of the game.
Could have been.
So, Terminus, tell us about it. What is the theme?
You're a city planner. Oh, that's so exciting. I bet everybody grew up saying, like, I want to be a city planner. So, anyway, whoever has the most political influence at the end of the game, victory points, wins.
This is not a government game, by the way. Also limited on the engineering side.
I want to be a city planner.
I don't know. Well, you're an engineer, but not that type of engineer.
Nope.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it is kind of an engineering game.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe my thoughts about the game are going to change.
Anyway, what kind of mechanics do we have, Toph?
Yes, all of them. Absolutely every mechanic that is known to man, except for worker placement, which I don't know.
Even though
BGG and I argue on that one.
Yeah, they said the worker placement, and this is not a worker placement.
This is not a worker
Don't
placement.
go into this thinking like, I'm going to buy a worker placement. No.
So starting with the obvious, the big one, this is a route building game and a network building game. And sometimes those are thrown together as one or the other, but I do believe there's a difference with this one because you are building routes and also hopefully building up some networks to be able to do certain types of things. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, I think the next big thing, at least for me, that stuck out is the economic nature of this game. So within kind of what I would call economic, you have income, trying to get that in different ways. You've got drafting, which normally I don't like. And in this game, there were some things that became really fun and tight with that. It was open drafting. Market value is a big thing. And resource management also is quite big in this game. And that came up a lot as we played. Yeah. This is a rondel game as well, which is something that a lot of us do enjoy. Action selection comes through the rondel, and the turn order, although that's not the rondel itself, it does influence the kind of next round of play based on how you go through that. And Brad will talk more about that later on. Mm-hmm. Tile placement, another thing, limited, but there is some tile placement in this game. There are end game bonuses. It's a bit of an engine builder to a point, and then upgrades. I think that's the engine building part of it. You can upgrade your player board. You can do some things like that, which is kind of cool. But those are the biggest that stand out.
Yep. Let's see what we got. Player count. So this plays up to 5 players, which is nice. We played it up to 5. Didn't have an issue with it. This wasn't a game that I'd be like, don't play this at 5. You can play this at 3, 4, 5. I don't think you have a problem. We have not played it, just Toph and I, so I can't comment on 2. It does have a autonoma for 1. I'd say anywhere between 3 and 5, I think you're going to be happy with this. And it's only because I can't comment at 2. I think things are going to open up at the lower player counts, but they have 2 sides to the board. And so things kind of get locked down. You're not, as you have fewer people, there's less things to go after. So it may scale, may not.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how that scale really goes, but I think the game will change greatly between them.
Yep.
Player Playtime.
Playtime.
This does vary by player count. So it's set up when the box says recommended about 25 minutes per player, and I would say that's pretty much spot on with what we've found, give or take a few minutes here or there. So the actual playtime. Teach time may be a little bit different because there's so much going on that takes some time, but playing it itself, playing somewhere between probably an hour and a half to 2 or so hours if you're playing in that 3 to 5 player range.
Yeah. And so kind of give you a turn overview. This is your rondelle at the top of the board, quote unquote, because it's got words on all 4 sides of the board. So there's
Toph got that wrong.
Yeah, but you're going to start here, and you're going to get to go around the rondelle 3 times. After you've gone around the rondelle 3 times, you go and become the last player. So that's kind of how the first to last player works in this game, and you get some bonuses a la Lacerda's, depending on where you're at in the ranking for that. But you've got this green area, and that is the development zone. And when you go to these white spots are your rondelle stops, and whatever is connected to that by a line, those are the actions you can take. So this spot has 1, 2, 3 actions. So they all pretty much have 3 actions that you can take. And you've got your development, you've got your lobbyist, where you're trying to get more of these objective cards and place your meeples out on end of game objectives. Things like that are happening here. This is where you're going to get plans for buildings. What is that other symbol? Contracts. Yep. And there's, the resources here. This is contracts, isn't it? These are blueprints.
These are blueprints, sorry.
Yeah, and then down here you've got contracts, and then energy that you're going to be using. Then over here you're going to get cute little construction cones if you get the upgrades, but the wooden ones look pretty good too. And then this is also where you can build for your train tracks. So subways, these are subways. And then you come back around here, and this is where you actually build your hubs and your train tracks and things like that. And at first glance, you're going to be like, well, I'm just going to kind of slowly work my way around. But then you quickly find out, like, all these resources are limited. This is all you get for the entire game for as many people as you're playing. So to get construction cones that allow you to build later, this is all there is. And then to get energy to do things, this is all there is for all the players.
6 for the whole game.
This one for the contracts you need to be building things, this is all there's. Like, all these things are very limited, so you're like, I need to skip. I'm going to go from here all the way to here so I can make sure I secure the thing I need to then go over here and get this and then build. Like, and then if you screw up, you're like, crap, now I have to go all the way around to the next turn and kind of skip some things I would have wanted to do to come back here and now get the building action or something. So there's some pluses and minuses to that. But
since Brad and I are both good at board games, neither of us experienced
had no problems doing that. None whatsoever. And you kind of feel like it's laid out organically, like you do this, but then when you find out you want to do a couple things, it's like, oh, wait a minute, that's back there, I already passed it, now I'm here. Like, it, the 3 times you're going around this is like, I have to make sure I get this first time, I have to make sure I do this the second time, I may have a couple of other actions in between, and then I got to do this to finish up my whole turn and build or get something out on the thing. So you're ramping yourself up. It just gets it can be kind of difficult to figure out what you want, and then somebody takes what you wanted, or somebody places a route down where you wanted, and then it can kind of
then it
damn you, Ashby.
Yes. One of our players in our 5-player game might have frequently fell victim to every single thing he wanted to build was taken by Ashby.
Yeah.
Also, we experienced that too, but not to the same extent.
Yeah.
Damn you, Ashby.
We were at the end of the game where Derek did well, but every time he turned around, Ashby was putting a track where he wanted to go. And so you're doing this, and then what you're doing here affects things that you have on your board. And oh, by the way, did we say resources are limited? They are also limited to how many you can take. So you can't be a hoarder of said resources, which is something I do like. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 places to take these things. So you kind of have to figure out, you almost can't take everything. And sometimes you get stuck where you can only take one thing and you want more than one thing. Like there's these dynamics in the game that make it pretty thinky. That's a very, very high turnover view. I'm not going to go over each thing that's in here, but just to summarize, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actions you can take in your rondel. There's 3 actions within each one of those that help you proliferate your routes out on the map and buildings and unlocking your tableau and things like that. So
yeah, so one thing that I argue with, well, both of us argue with BGG on is, I think that's one of the places that maybe some people may assume it's worker placement. It's not worker placement because multiple people can be in each of those spots at one time. However, you only choose one of those actions. So one slot I think had 2, everything else had 3 you could choose. And sometimes you have to choose 2 in the same box for something big that you want to do. And you can't, because you only choose one action while you're there. So that does get limited. Also with the resources, they're limited on your board. They do go back to the main player board when you spend them. So it's not that, once you spend them, they get thrown away, back into the box. But it can be quite limiting for somebody who likes long thought out plans. The Eurogamer here, actually Brad does good with this too. Brad does much better probably with the long-term planning. We didn't fare well with the let's collect a lot of resources and then do something big part of the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting
mindset.
Puzzle.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting puzzle.
Yeah.
So pros, what do we got?
Yes. So I wrote down quite a handful of pros. Am I going first? I get to choose the good one
first.
I get to choose the good one. So I think, so I'm going to start with the rondel. For me, this was one of the big pros that I thought of it, and we kind of discussed this already, but the fact that you cannot go, as Brad said, space to space and plan out something, it's going to take hopping around this rondel to be able to get your actions together. I love that because it slows the game down, which was one of them. So or at least slows you down from doing these big powerhouse moves all of the sudden. And it forces you kind of to move and think of other conditions or other things that you might need to take. Also, it's not worker placement, but you may have to go to a spot. Somebody else might be there first. And now, because of the action, they took the same one you took, maybe it changes the value or the power or the
amount of resources that you can get.
Yeah. And that's kind of some of the economic things with it is, so for example, if you're going to take contracts, I believe all the contracts are $1 a piece. So like this is the contract area here. When I go there,
it tells you which ones, how much it is. The fewer they are, the more they cost.
The more you can take. Yeah. So $1 for this contract, but then they go to $2 a piece and then $3 a piece. So if somebody has taken some of it, now all of a sudden what you thought you had enough money to cover may not cover you to be able to buy what you need. So I like that kind of stuff because it just, it gives me the Euro feel, that happy Euro feel that some of us have.
My pro is around the rondel, but it's the limited resources. I enjoyed the fact that this puzzle of I've only got 8 spots for building cones, energy, blueprints, construction. I think that was it, right? So I've got these 4 resources I need. I don't need all of them all the time, but I always kind of want 1 or 2 of them to be able to do other things. And I've only got 8 spots. So it's now it's kind of like, which upgrade am I going to try to go for? Because these might give me another action when I go to one of the same color spots, or they have advanced cards. I don't have them with me that allow me to kind of like cheat the system. Like every time I get one of the cones, I'm always going to get +1, or every time I get a blueprint, I'm always going to get +1 blueprint. So somebody else stole some before I got there, but now I'm going to get 2 anyway, but then do I have space for it? and then once you use it, it goes back, right? So somebody may have gotten it, but then on their next turn, they're going to build it, and then it goes back and everything's full again. It's an interesting back and forth.
Yeah, supply and demand.
I don't think we've played another game like that.
Not as tight as that is in terms of resources.
Yeah, because it literally like
so
like this is all you have. So it was interesting to see. Goes to somebody's tableau, gets spent, goes back to the board. Comes, like it's just this back and forth. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's definitely a major perk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, another pro for me is the player order selection. And Brad kind of talked about this a little bit, but with the rondel, you're going around 3 times, and then you're getting kind of kicked off the board into a holding spot until everybody has finished their 3 turns around the rondel. One of the things that I like about this is it's going to change the player order, because when you leave the board, after you finish your 3 rounds, you go to the last available slot in that holding pattern. So for this, it would be a card that's hanging off the side of the board. You're the first person off. You go up here to the last person spot, and then it keeps going up to first player turn. Mm-hmm. What I like about this one is that you would think going off the board first is going to give you a lot of benefits for the next round because you're starting last, but that's not the case. And what I remember thinking at some times was, I'm going to stay on this board as much as I can so that I can get to a first player, or I was usually middle. I don't think I ever was first player, but I was usually somewhere in the middle of the pack, because the order of you leaving the rondel, the first player is going to get no additional bonus. The next is going to get a bit of a bonus, and then the next person's going to get a bigger bonus. And if you work your way all the way up to being the last person to leave the rondel, you're going to get the best bonus. So you're going to get these special resources, and you're going to be able to go first. But I remember the puzzle of thinking, I almost have to do meaningless things so that I stay on the rondel as long as possible. So it was kind of like, I don't want to rush to go build something real quick, because building is all the way at the very end. And then if that's my 3rd round, I can't do anything else. I got to leave the board. So I've got to do some other things while managing the fact that I only have slots for 8 resources in order to get off the board and kind of reset that player order. So I really like that. Also, you're not just going around the table. It's
always varying. Mm-hmm. I did, and it. So it's not an engine builder, but you are still unlocking or adding upgrades. You've got these 4 advanced upgrades that you can have. You start with 2 that you can flip over as you unlock terminals as you're building. You're going to get more and more income. You can get victory points by getting some discs that are out on the board. I liked this little puzzle as it was. Mm-hmm. And then also the income. So during your income phase at the beginning of each round, you actually get to pick which one of these incomes you want. So it gives you some flexibility to say, like, okay, well, this round I need to get some cones, or I need to get some rails, or I can just go all in on that and not get any of the other things, or maybe I need blueprints. I'm going to go all in on that. So it gives you some ways to get some resources that you may not have been able to get in the last round. So I like the tableau items that you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, that income I thought was quite interesting, how you can play that. Mm-hmm. That was fun. Also challenging because of how many resource spots you have.
Yeah.
I forgot about that a lot. The building powers is another thing that I did like. So as you build these buildings throughout the board, when you build it next to your terminal, and you put one of your meeples on it. And now that becomes an action that you may be able to take when you go to the rondel spot that matches the symbol that's on the card. So if you're going to have a building out and that building has the hand symbol here, when I go to that action spot, I can choose these 3, or I can choose the action that's on my board, or my building. And so that's a fun way to be able to unlock additional benefits and other actions that really come into play at the end of the game, but some of them were really fun. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like one of mine was kill people to get benefits or something like that.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into there's 2 spots for advanced actions that go on your tableau, and they can kind of tie into this. And this is where I was saying, like, it might be one that says, oh, every time I get an orange cone, I get an extra orange cone, or every time I do this, I get a coin, or something like that. There's other ones. So you're trying to figure out, when do you want to do an upgrade? When do you want to take that precious rondelle spot during your turn to get that? And then, you're going to pay money, or you're going to pay resources or something for it. But it goes hand in hand with the building, because the buildings give you an extra place to have an action. But then the advance can give you a bonus. And do you want to get the advanced one early, or do you want to get the advanced one late, where is it or isn't it going to do you much good? So,
yeah, it's... In the beginning, I didn't think... I first thought, oh my goodness, these buildings are going to be extremely powerful. And then they didn't come into play quite as much. But I think, Brad, you had the best opportunity of synergizing your upgrades in your buildings. Because there were a couple times that you were just killing it with that action spot.
Yeah, I went with the plus things. So
yeah.
I was able to pull, but it did not help me. But...
True. Maybe he wasn't killing it. It just seemed like it was a good play.
But like any game, you have to look at the objectives, right? So you can also get personal objectives, which these are cool little cards that you can bring, and you're the only one that can do them. And then there's global objectives, where only 2 people can go per card for what these are. And I think there's 4, and they tell you what you should start with. But there's a lot of different in-game objective points available. And these are not easy to get.
No. And that's another thing that I like. Maybe not so much the end-game bonuses, but your meeples as a resource.
Yeah.
And so you have, I think it was 8 meeples or something like that to begin the game. As you build your buildings, you have to put one of your meeples on it. Mm-hmm. So now you're lessening your pool. Well, if you want to go for these big objectives, you have to put your meeples on it. So you are essentially limiting what you can do in the future in terms of building buildings or other things based on where you're playing things. And these are a gamble. Do you want to go for it early so you secure a spot, or do you want to wait until you know that you're going to get the payoff from it? Those are cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You got any other pros?
I think most of them you and I have gone through. We would get into very little things going next, which I could keep talking about little things. But.
Yeah. So cons, I don't have a lot of them. I will say honestly, the biggest con I had, they do have a cheat sheet. So if you've played Great Western Trail, you're used to seeing something like this, same size and everything. I don't like how they had some of these things ordered. There was one in here where it was they have them by number, which I would rather you show me the picture of the card like they do in Great Western Trail, and then explain what that is and the number. So for the people who are visual, you can look for the visual. There's a number system. Just the number system, and trying to understand, okay, which are these numbers going to these cards, or are these numbers going to these cards, or are these numbers going to these cards? So you have to, it's not the hardest thing in the world, but it is still just one of those things okay, which one am I looking at? There's no pictures. This is all just numbers. Which numbers are they? And you have the advanced, and so that was the thing. And then there was actually one, I can't remember which one it was. Oh yeah, this goes 1, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6. Let's at least put them in order. They moved it around so that it would fit on the page, but can we just put them in order?
Yeah, that graphic designer did not live up to that change or whatever happened last minute.
It's fine here. There's actually, the icons are pretty good, all things said.
Yeah.
But the cheat sheet was just kind of I had to spend too much time trying to figure out the cheat sheet that was supposed to help me figure out what the things were.
And that's where the complaint comes into, I think, for most people. So I want to pick on Brad and be like, oh, you got to read, and that's, hard for him. But it's the amount of time. So whenever, especially, you're learning a game, you have to have these cards out or these resource helps, guides to be able to help you. And they made one, but anytime it was a question, it was like, okay, hold on, guys. And then you're flipping through trying to figure out which one's which.
It should just be faster.
We spent a lot of time looking at that.
They do have a cheat sheet for your actions and stuff.
That is great.
Yeah. So they bravo. Thank you for every game designer who actually makes these. But the actual
Yeah.
What does card number 15 mean?
Yeah. Now that's going to get less and less as you play more and
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
you know,
it's
but
definitely
it's still,
it's a beginner thing, but it was still just it's a nitpick.
Rightful so. Yeah.
Con.
Yes. My biggest con is, I think, the game felt very sluggish for the first half of the game, and then all of a sudden it felt like it was too tight in an instant.
Or
Like, it
racing,
didn't feel
they were
like,
just like you were on
yeah,
you were climbing the slide, and then once you got to the top, it's just like whoosh, done.
yeah, and that's where all of a sudden the damn it Ashby came in, because it went from all of us like slowly building, doing this and that. And granted, we were, you're still figuring out the game. You're, trying to figure out, now it's 5 players. What are we doing? But it still felt like, when's the game going to start? And
Right.
then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, I'm not going to win this game. Like, or it's,
You're scrambling. You're trying to figure out.
yeah.
So.
And that there was no in between, at least to me, from what I felt with the game. So, and
Yeah. So I guess the thing we didn't talk about is the game length is dictated by 3 years or 3 months or however you want to look at it, right? So you go around the rondelle 3 times, and then you go to the next month or year, however you want to look at it, and so forth and so on. So like, I think that odd number of rounds probably made it feel like we're building. Oh, crap, it's the end. Like, so it's probably my thoughts on why it might have felt that way.
maybe
Odd number of rounds.
I don't know.
So
I don't know.
and to kind of go with that, like, and I have 2 cons that are kind of wrapped up into one. It's a little slow on the build up, and then it's a little tight on the building, like, so building tracks and such. So, and I think this was kind of like, I wanted to do more. The rondelle thing was fun, but I wanted to throw more stuff out on the board. And so I guess this gets into, as we're getting, is it fun or is it Euro or is it how is it, it's thinky, and it's always trying to find that balance of, I want thinky fun versus thinky, just to be thinky.
Yeah.
I don't think it's thinky to be thinky, but like, I'm just trying to explain. It was like, I just wanted to be able to do a little bit more than the game was allowing.
Especially route building.
Yeah, I mean, I bought this because it was a route builder. I am always excited or biased towards route builders, and I want to play them and I want to try them. Way back in the day, everybody plays Ticket to Ride, right? And the first time you play it, you probably liked it, and, people like route builders. Now this is a Euro route builder, but you're still like, I want to build routes.
I need to be doing more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get so many train tracks to build your routes. And I mean, there was no way, like, I didn't even do half of my route, not half my routes, but half of the pieces to use. I wanted more route building.
Mm-hmm.
Weird for the Euro gamer to say that.
Yep.
The hardcore one.
Yeah.
So
you got another con?
I do. Upgrading. So I love engine builders, and while Brad said this isn't really an engine builder, and I agree with that, there are things that you can unlock and that you can improve, get better income, the upgraded, not actions, but conditions that you have down here. Those things I enjoy upgrading, but it felt almost like upgrading was unnecessary for most of the things that I was trying to upgrade, except for income. Income you have to have, because money is hard to come by. But I almost felt like it was kind of unnecessary. Now, you had some good upgrades, but you only have 4. 2 of them were predetermined for you, so you're only really collecting 2 additional ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms, this isn't really upgrading, but you can go get new individual gold cards. And then it's like, okay, well, if I'm not building enough routes to get with the gold cards what they are, then what's the point of going to get those? Like, is it necessary or not to go get these additional, like, to spend one of your action points to collect those if I'm not going to be able to build the routes to be able to complete them? So, and they're not all just routes, go from here to here, but you're still building. You're doing something. There's something that those are giving you extra benefits for.
And you're giving up one of your resources that
is valuable
are limited
for other things. Yes.
For other things. So, but yeah. Anything else?
My last one, and this is not a hardcore con, but there are many ways to get points, almost maybe too many ways to get points, or at least to spread yourself thin to try to get points. I like a lot of points. Like, I'm not opposed to point salad games. I don't think this is a point salad game, but there are lots of things that you can do, and it's not, at least it didn't click yet to me. Maybe it will if we become experts of the game, something like that, but it didn't click to me like, oh, let's go this route to do this. Like, let me choose this pathway and I'm going to focus on getting those points. Instead, there was a great diversity, and I didn't feel like yielded what maybe they should. So, like I said, take that for what it is. But in terms of trying to figure out, you've got all these different goal cards. You've got all the things on your player board that could be used, like with you when you get these little, I forget what they're called, discs. They're demand tokens. Yeah. Those things, they're all going to give you things, points. A lot of it's end game. You're going for them at the very end, but it just almost felt like it was too much,
and I would say
needed.
And I would say I'm the opposite of that. I was glad all that stuff was out there, because it could give you different ways depending on what's coming up, because it is tactical. It's not strategic. You're going to have to keep adjusting based on what's happening. So I was glad that stuff's there. Like, I really wanted to go for all these points here, because if you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you get 25 points at the end if you can and get that. And I think you did.
No, Ashby did.
Oh, Ashby did. Yeah, Ashby won.
Yeah.
So, but
I came in second though. I did very well.
Yeah, you did.
Surprising.
Yeah, but I think you have to look like anything. You have to get these objectives and try to get something early, but then you only have 3 rounds to pick what you're going to go for, or try to get some of these side bonus things that you're going to get. But I appreciated the fact that there were multiple ways. It felt like multiple ways to win.
There were, yes. And it's so funny that Brad's...
Although me and Derek got smoked.
Yes, they did. They really did. This is kind of humorous to me, because like, I'm the tactical player. Brad is more the strategic player. We both can do both of them. But typically, I'm excelling at tactical games, and Brad's excelling at the long-term strategy thinking, planning games. And here, I'm calling it the con, because I love the multiple plays to win and the tactical play, and Brad's... This one messed us up. Are we still friends?
Yes. So setup for this, I would say it's not any worse than a typical Euro. You are going to have a lot of tokens to put out, but we've had board and dice games that way more stuff to put out. So for a Euro game, for things that you're putting out on the board and getting everybody's tableaus full and all that, I don't think it's worse than any other. I've seen worse games, I've seen easier games, but this is somewhere in the middle, just to give you an idea of setup time. I usually talk about BGA if this is available. They don't have this on BGA, so we'll skip that part. And weight rating. Yeah.
So the more that I think about this game, kind of maybe seeing close to what BGG is rating it. So as of right now, BGG is rating the game with a weight of 3.63. And I did not think, as we were playing it, I didn't ever think, oh, this is a 3.5 game. I thought it was lower. Now, there's a lot of things to do, thinky, multiple actions, what are you going to do when? But I just never felt like it was up that high. But really, the more that we talk about it, the more that we think about the game, the more that the game goes on, you're playing it, and you're starting to see it's the reason why I think it's the 3.63. It's kind of a weird number, but at least a 3.5 is kind of where I would put the game, is because there are so many things that you have to think through in order, because you're limited in resources or times around the rondo. And that's what increases, for me, the complexity. Because when we were playing it, I was really sitting here thinking this is like a 3. You taught it. It takes a long time to teach. You taught it, and then we started playing it, and I never felt like it went above a 3 while playing it. It's after, when thinking about it, that it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, now I understand why these are going on. And so it does have quite a bit of complexity in it, but no one action is hard.
Yeah, but that's a lot of games, though.
So it's, the tightness makes it a little bit heavier weight, because you do have so much limited things that you have to do. It's a lot of planning. This is it's an engineering game. It is planning. It's engineering a city. And so that's where that complexity comes in. So I don't think they're really off. I'd say about 3.5. Yeah, sure, 3.6.
Yep, I would agree. Teach. So we kind of been going over like, is it super easy and it's a teach of 1? If is it super hard, like some Lacerdas, it's a 5 and you're spending an hour and a half or more to teach it. It didn't seem like I spent an hour teaching this, but I ended up, it took me an hour to teach this. And it's because of a lot of the things when you look at the resource boards and explaining, like, you don't, on this one, you may take the whole row and you don't pay anything for this resource. But over here, you're paying whatever for each resource, depending on what column you're in. And then the same, like, they all have these like little things, but you can only take one column, right? So if somebody left one cone there, then you're only going to get one cone for taking that action. Now that screwed you up, right? So like, it's trying to explain all the different things, because there's 3 different things times what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 6.
Yeah.
So it's not quite 18, but like, you're trying to explain what each one of these things do, because it's not like Castles of Burgundy where you say you roll a dice and then you can pick a thing here in one of these places and you place it over in your duchy, and then from your duchy to your board. The complexity in that really is more like, I need this cheat sheet to know what all these tiles mean. This is, I've got these 15 things that are kind of similar but kind of not, that you need to tell everybody. And then I couldn't even like, let's just play. Like some of the games are like, we're going to go and we're going to do a round. But it was like 45 minutes to an hour before I could get to the point where like, okay, now we're going to start playing.
And even at that, we still had to keep going back to the book. And each of the things, some of them are easy like that, although it's still complex to everyone as individual. But some of them are like, okay, well, what do each of the cards that are out mean? So yeah, let's take that action, but now let's spend 5 minutes talking about that.
Then you got to go into the cheat sheet that I complained about earlier. But yeah. So value rating. This game, what was this game at? $55 from
55.
Inside Up Games, and that's from their website. So that's I don't know if that includes free shipping. I think you're getting quite a bit for $55. You don't need the upgrade kit. The wooden components, I think, are as nice as the upgraded components, which are like a plastic and printed on. They're either wood and printed on or plastic and printed on. Best thing about the upgrades are these little rubber cones that you can get, which I think you can get from, what's the upgrade place in Raleigh, Durham?
My goodness, I love them too.
I forget the name.
From them. Yeah.
Great coins, but I think you don't need the upgrades. The upgrades aren't worth it. The game, $55. One being like, if it was $10, I'd give it a 5 out of 5. If it were $100 for the base game, I would probably give it a 1. Like, I don't think it would be worth $100. But where it's sitting at in that $55 range, it's, right where Castles of Burgundy used to be when it was a standard edition. I think it's a good game. I think you're 3.5 to a 4 for the value. Like anything, it's going to be like, did you like the game or not? It could be like, I threw money away and I don't like the game. But I think in that $50 range is a good place for board gaming to be, especially with what it came with.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you, Brad, for getting all the upgrades.
Yeah, but, I was expecting like the upgrades to be like all metal coins instead of tracks. Really, there's one metal subway piece and a couple metal markers that I didn't really think fit with the tracks on the board. So, like I would recommend against the upgrades. I was at Gencon. I'm going to get all in, right? But, I would say in hindsight, I wouldn't have.
Yeah. I actually prefer all the wooden pieces except the coins and these.
Yeah.
But maybe if they weren't silk screened, stuff like that. But yeah. Should they do the Kickstarter for 90 something?
I don't think you can get the Kickstarter. This is already delivered.
Well,
Or
I guess it, maybe
delivering.
not Kickstarter, but the deluxe version. So
Yeah.
that would be.
I wouldn't
no
do the
for us.
deluxe,
Yeah.
but just my opinion.
Yeah. So we're going to BGG ratings.
BGG
next, right?
ratings, yes.
Do you want to go? You want me to?
You can go.
Okay. So for me, I'm still on the fence as to where I'm putting this. It is not, for me, an 8. It's also not a 6.5 or below. It's a 7 to a 7.5. And I want it to be an 8 because I want it to be a 9 because I feel like everything in this game are things that I really want to have in a game because they're mechanics I love. I think I'm putting it at a 7.
Yeah. So, and I'm kind of in that same boat with Toph. I want it to be an 8. You know, I like route building. I'm biased toward route building. It's definitely not a 6 point anything. You know, you're a 7 to 7.5, right? And I don't normally give halves. There's enough here that I would say this is a 7.5. And if you like route building along with that, but this isn't like, I can't tell you, you're going to be missing out on the best game of 2024 if you don't get this game, you know? So it's a solid game. You know,
7 and 7.5 is not a bad score at all.
No, but you know, like as you're spending your money and you're trying to figure out, do I get all the games, or if I'm just going to pick games, or you're just going to buy 8s, 9s, and 10s, you know, I would say buy 8s, 9s, and 10s first. But this is still a good game if you like route building, you like those kind of mechanics with the rondelle and the other things that we've told you about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, my rating 7.5.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 and a 7.5.
Yeah. So who's this for and who's it not for?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, just a general discussion time.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna have things that people may not like me to say. I shouldn't say them. Gosh, you're putting me on the spot. This is a game. Can I do the not?
Mm-hmm.
This is a game not for someone who wants a very complex, thinky Euro or a very integrated route building.
Yeah, it's not Ticket to Ride where you're putting a bunch of routes out, you know, and a lot of things like that. There's multiple other things going on with the building and the planning and those kinds of things. So,
yeah,
you know, it is a route builder, but it's route builder light because it's got these other mechanics going on.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm like, if you like route building, you could still enjoy this game, right? So that's you know,
yes,
it's not a 4-weight heavy Euro, and it's not a 2.5, you know, Ticket to Ride. You know, it's in between there. So it may work for you, but you know, you are thinking, you are planning, you are having to be like, oh, I'm trying to get to that, or you know, I didn't get quite the objective card I wish I had.
Yeah. It is, I think, for someone who wants that interesting mix of, I guess it's more city building than just route building, because all the stuff you're doing at the top, you're helping to build your routes, but you're helping to build the city and do everything else. So it's you have to get that mix of the two, as opposed to going all in on one or all in on the other.
So what do you think? Is this something you're interested in? I would say this is definitely more on the hidden gem kind of side of things. You know, even though we're saying it's a 7 and 7.5, you know, it doesn't have a lot of, you know, ratings, and, you know, it did kickstart and it hit its goals, but it's not like, it wasn't $1 million, things like that. So have you heard of it? Is this for you? We would really like to know what you think.
Yeah, I definitely do. Did I miss the mark too? Did I upset you? I didn't go into as many details, but you know, come at me. No, we hope you guys enjoyed it, and let us know down in the comments your thoughts on our review and whether or not you played it. Because yeah, I haven't heard much about it. When Brad sent it to me, I was like, hey, let's try it. I'm down for it. So yeah.
And just remember, no matter how you play, whether it's solo, with family, or friends,
enjoy whatever you're bringing to the table.
Have a great night.